I'd like to recognize some people that are here and those that have helped us get this in place before we move on with the award ceremony. First of all, Senate President Spilka, State Representative Dykema. I'd like to recognize any of the selectmen, but I don't see them. From the PD, Lieutenant Denman. From the Fire Department, Chief Cassidy, Deputy Moore, and Deputy Delica. Thank HCAT for being here covering us. It's really nice. Also like to thank the Holliston reporter for covering this. And I was looking for the reporter from the Holliston local news, but I don't see her. Okay, so we're going to start the program with a few words from Senate President Spilka.
Good morning. That's better. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We're here to commemorate the solemn anniversary of September 11th, 2001, and all that we lost that day, which is, it's amazing to realize all the years that have gone by, and we've still held the event and the folks in our hearts. But we're also here to celebrate those of you in our community that serve our friends and neighbors every single day as firefighters, as police officers, EMTs, and active military. On behalf of the entire Massachusetts State Senate, I would like to thank you all of our first responders from the bottom of my heart, as well as to all of our veterans for all that you have done. I actually spent some time, I just want to digress for a moment, in Normandy this past summer. It was a leadership conference, but it tied all the lessons to the lessons of Normandy and the beaches and all of the battles of Normandy. And it was incredibly emotional. So again, I thank all of our veterans for everything that you have done and the sacrifices and the courage that you have shown. I'd like to also thank our citizens. They're so plentiful in Holliston that take the idea of service to heart and find ways through volunteering to make our community a better place. It's fitting that we remember the bravery of our first responders as we reflect on the tragedy of 9/11. But we must also remember that even in the absence of large tragedies that grab our attention and fill the news cycle, our first responders display that kind of bravery each and every day. And they dedicate their lives each and every day to serving us. And for that, we will be forever grateful. This year, the Senate passed bills to connect veterans with employers, expand benefits and increase access to services and programs for veterans, create a stable revenue stream for municipal police training that I know we have sought after and the police have sought for so many years, long overdue. And we also passed a bill to ensure confidentiality of first responders when participating in peer support services, which is often so necessary for all that you respond to. Each session in the legislature, and I pledge to continue to do this, we strive to create and pass legislation that supports all of you, our veterans, our first responders, since you support our families and communities each and every day, and you do it so well. So please let us know what we can do, what more we can do to help serve you. I know you're not shy, so make sure that you let us know because we want to be there for you as well. And thank you to the Holliston American Legion for bringing us together today to remember and celebrate in some ways this important day in our history, and to recognize the wonderful individuals in our midst who quietly sacrifice their safety and comfort for all of us, as well as to recognize the volunteers who work, sometimes with little recognition, to make our lives better. And of course, I'd like to say a big congratulations to Holliston's oldest living veteran, and thank you so much for your service. And I will be presenting the citations in a little while to recognize folks, but thank you for coming out this morning and helping us all recognize men and women who so deserve it. Thank you.
Representative Dykema, if you could say a few words.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. It's always wonderful to be here every year to come out and recognize those who serve our communities. And I want to be sure to thank the American Legion for making it possible for the rest of us and creating this opportunity for the rest of us to come out and say thank you to those who do so much every day for us here in Holliston and beyond, in fact. It's always surprising to me that one of the characteristics of our public safety, whether it be police or fire, of course our veterans, is the humility and the work that they do and how little they ask in return. And so to be able to come here today and recognize them and make a public statement about the value of their work is really a wonderful opportunity for me, and I know for the rest of us. So this event really is about service and the meaning of service, and I'm sure the awards that we're going to hear and the stories about the service that was provided by these individuals in this room are going to be as remarkable as they always are every year. And they contribute in the ways large, as we're going to hear about, and in so many small ways that I think we've become so accustomed to, and they're so every day that we take them for granted sometimes. Which we shouldn't. So we're here to thank you for those small ways as well. And I want to be sure to recognize also the families. Service is a calling, and many of you, I know, have a history of service in your families. And there's risk that goes with service, especially in public safety and serving in our military. And every day, the folks get up and take on that risk willingly for the behalf of the rest of us. And there are families that also bear that risk and bear a lot of worry. So today I want to recognize them as well and thank them for their support of our public safety folks. I think I actually am right in the right age group. Does everyone here remember Mr. Rogers? Maybe some of the younger of us don't remember Mr. Rogers, but I grew up with Mr. Rogers, and they just recently did a movie documentary on him, and what an incredible man that leaves a really incredible legacy for children. And one of the things that I remember Mr. Rogers saying is when speaking to children, said, when you're scared and afraid, look for the helpers. Because there's something so reassuring about looking for the helpers and knowing that there are people there who, when times are bad, and sometimes the worst times, are willing to stand up and protect the rest of us. And that's very comforting for children. It's very comforting, frankly, for all of us. And so today, those are the folks that we recognize, and that's why we recognize them for providing that safety and security and sense of well-being that we all enjoy here in Holliston, and frankly, that we all enjoy in the United States of America, thanks to our military. And it would be remiss of me not to also acknowledge our oldest veteran, who can't be here today, but obviously his legacy of service and the commitment to our country and the meaning of that he leaves to the younger generation is something we celebrate in addition to celebrating him. And also we have a special recognition, which I understand is a surprise, so I'm not going to mention it, but that individual as well gives a tremendous amount back to the community and has in so many, many ways over the years. So I look forward to recognizing that individual as well. So thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out this morning. It's really my privilege to be here.
Okay, we're going to move on with the awards now. And Walter, if you would come up and give me a hand with this first one. Senator Spilker and Representative Dykema, if you would. This will be the fourth time we've given out the Unsung Citizen Award. A lot of us that do things in town, you see our picture in the paper all the time, like me. Love to have my picture in the paper. That's why I do these things. But there are a lot of people in this town who do for others and don't get recognized for it. That's why we created the Unsung Citizen Award. Our first recipient is back in the corner, Bill Stickney. Our second recipient was Herbie Brockert, and to validate that, the next year he was Citizen of the Year in Holliston. So we beat them to it. The last time we gave it out was to Joe Sabati, who's also a member of the Post, but he plays for Bugles Across America. At veterans' funerals across southern New England, he plays taps. This year, I will call up our recipient right now. Junior Vice Commander Bob Hopkins.
I'll read the plaque. Unsung Citizen Award presented with sincere appreciation for outstanding service to the town of Holliston and its citizens, presented to Robert Bob Hopkins this September 9th, 2018. Stephen Bradford, Commander. Congratulations, Bob.
Okay, Bob is our junior vice commander at the American Legion Post. He's the senior vice commander at the VFW Post. He's a volunteer at the Holliston Pantry Shelf, and he's now on the council at the Senior Center. Bob's also a World War II veteran, so he's given us all of his adult life. He's dedicated to his town. When he signed that oath when he joined the Marine Corps at 17, I think. At 17 years old, he's lived that oath for the whole life. So, thanks, Bob.
Simplify to everybody, and I can't believe I'm up here.
And you could wave to your family down in the back corner. In 2013, we decided to recognize our oldest living veteran in the town of Holliston. Our first oldest living veteran was Grace Monahan. She passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 103. She was recognized when she was 99. This past year, well, in the last few months, our next oldest veteran, who is John Babe Johnson passed away. He was recognized, that was in May of last year. So we now recognize our current oldest living veteran. His name is J. Harvey Brown. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. He's resting comfortably in a rehab home right now. Bob has been in contact with the family. We thought we'd have representatives here today, but they had the dates mixed up, which was kind of a theme, if you guys remember from your invitations on dates being mixed up. Okay, but this one wasn't my fault. So we do have the awards. Over here on the table is a sword in a glass case, along with a plaque that hang next to the town clerk's office. The case was built by past Commander Alan Greendale, and I think it's a fitting tribute to him. So, Bob, as you did all the work for contacting Harvey and all, if you'd come up and receive his citations. We also have a citation from Department of Veterans Affairs. Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Veterans Services, J. Harvey Brown, World War II veteran, in appreciation to your service of our country in the United States Army, September 1942 to April 1946. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts thanks you. Francisco A. Urena, Secretary. As Bob just mentioned, we will take these citations to where Harvey is located right now, and we'll, over the next week or so, when the family can set it up, we will take the citations to him. Thanks, Bob. Lieutenant Denman. These awards started up at the Mayor's Plantation, I'm not sure, 10 or 12 years ago. Andy, I think you were one of the first ones. I think I gave you a promotion that day and called you Sergeant, okay? And George, I think you were there also. I think there was a third one, but I'm old. I can't remember who it was. But the mayor and I were talking last week about it. If you go into the plantation and there's a sign that says parking that way, and it was right in front of that parking sign is where we did the awards. And they were presented by former chiefs George and Peterson. So it's a privilege for the American Legion to recognize the recipients from both the police and the fire department, and we're grateful that you could attend. We're grateful for everything that you do for us. So we'll start now. Bob? What'll happen is we'll present the awards. Junior Vice Commander Hopkins will hand them off to Lieutenant Denman, and they'll then move down the line and get your citations from Representative Dykmer and Senator Spilka. And then as your group has gotten your awards, if you would stand there, and Lieutenant Denman will read a synopsis of the reason for the award. So the first group, Sergeant Glenn Dalrymple, Detective Kara McGuire, Officer Tim Haney could not be with us, and Officer Felicia Philadelphia.
These incidents that I'm going to talk about today are really one of many extraordinary things that these men and women do on a daily basis, and I'm very privileged and proud to work with each and every one of them. In this particular incident, these officers responded to a possible overdose call. All were able to provide rescue breaths, chest compressions, prepare for defibrillation, and administer 2 doses of Narcan on the patient. More than 4 rounds of CPR were performed before the patient began to become conscious again. Holliston ambulance arrived and paramedics, and the patient was taken to an area hospital for treatment. So congratulations to these officers. Well done.
Lieutenant Chad Thompson, at the time he was Sergeant Chad Thompson, and Officer Andy McRae. Chad could not be with us today.
Sergeant Thompson and Officer McGray responded to a report of an unresponsive male possible overdose call. Upon arrival, the father of the victim was already performing chest compressions on his son, and 1 dose of Narcan was administered. Officer McGray arrived, placed the patient on the floor, and began CPR, and that was continued up until that point. While the patient was placed on the floor, CPR was done, and he began to regain a pulse and remained unresponsive and had labored breathing. They then administered a 2nd dose of Narcan, and within a few moments the patient opened his eyes and attempted to sit up. So congratulations to Sergeant Thompson, Lieutenant Thompson, and Officer McGray.
Okay, next is also Lieutenant, then Sergeant Chad Thompson, and Officer Scott Downey.
Lieutenant Thompson and Officer Downey responded to a possible overdose call. Working together as a team, they were both able to provide chest compressions and administer 2 doses of Narcan to the patient. Shortly thereafter, the patient began to become conscious again and was transported by Holliston Fire Ambulance to the hospital for treatment. Well done. Thank you.
Next is Sergeant Glenn Dalrymple and Officer James Ward.
Sergeant Dalrymple and Officer Ward had responded to a local medical facility where a 43-year-old patient was in distress. His face was becoming dark red. He was emitting occasional gurgling noises. And both Sergeant Dalrymple and Officer Ward immediately began CPR and provided oxygen to the patient via an ambu bag, and eventually provided a shock to the patient via an AED. As a result of their actions, the patient regained a pulse and began breathing on his own. Job well done, man. Thank you.
Sergeant George Larini.
While on patrol, Sergeant George Larini was flagged down by a pedestrian who indicated someone was in distress and seated inside of a van. Sergeant Larini approached the vehicle and found a male lying on the passenger seat with his head tilted back, and his lips and facial tone were gray and blue in color. Based on his observations and personal knowledge of the patient, he administered 1 dose of Narcan. He then pulled the patient from the vehicle, laid him on the ground, and began, EMS arrived. A second dose of Narcan was administered, and the patient became alert, and by his actions, he is alive today. Well done. Thank you.
Detective Kara McGuire.
Detective McGuire had responded to a neighboring town for a male who was in deep distress. And she was faced with a very stressful situation with a 39-year-old male party who was 50 feet up in a tree with a noose around his neck. Using the only tactical means available, excuse me, you at the time engaged the individual in a convincing conversation while keeping him calm and focused. Your compassionate approach led to a progressive discussion which eventually assisted this male party into making a life-saving decision and moved toward a safe ending for all. During the course of this incident, you treated this suicidal person with dignity and respect while having empathy for his current well-being. Without your calm approach, creative dialogue, and professional conduct during this stressful event, this man would certainly not be alive today. Well done.
Sergeant Jonathan Remkes. Officer Andrew McRae.
In this particular incident, these 2 officers responded to a possible overdose call. Upon arrival at the scene, an adult male was located and found to be unresponsive. You administered 1 dose of Narcan, which proved to have little or no effect on the patient. Officer McGray then proceeded to attach an AED where a no shock was advised. The patient was then given a second 4 milligram dose of Narcan. His complexion changed from blue to pale white and began to breathe on his own. Oxygen was then administered to the patient while EMS prepared him for transport to a local hospital. He's alive today because of your work. Thank you. Well done.
Okay, before we move on, I want to add my thanks. The veteran community lost a member of its group to what we in the community know as 22 kills. And his young daughter was at school, and officers responded, bringing her home from school and spending hours with the young daughter. Sorry to choke up. Thank you. You know who you were. We'll move on to the Holliston Fire Department if Deputies Moore and Deliker would come forward. Okay, the first award for the fire department goes to Chief Michael Cassidy. While on the way to address a computer problem at the fire station at 2:24 a.m. on October 30th, 2017, Chief Michael Cassidy discovered a structure fire on Mill Street. After calling the incident in by radio, the chief pounded on the front door of the home to alert the occupants. Once the family of 5 was safely evacuated from the home, the chief began to attempt exposure protection with a portable extinguisher. Thanks in part to the actions of the chief and a quick response by other members of the fire department with fire apparatus, the fire did not extend from the exterior into the interior of the home. Within an hour of the chief having notified the homeowners of the fire, they were already putting their children back to sleep in their own beds. This incident occurred on the first day of vacation for the chief, who was scheduled to fly out later that morning for a trip to Kentucky. Thanks, Chief. Okay, our next recipient could not be here this morning because he's working, and the 2 deputies will accept it on his behalf. The Holliston Fire Department responded to a direct alarm from the Holliston High School at 8:52 a.m. on Tuesday, October 31st, 2017. Upon arrival, it was determined that the alarm was caused by a sprinkler activation in the science wing. Further investigation revealed that the discharge from the suppression system was interacting with a water-reactive product in a science lab, which was creating an inhalation hazard. Based on his training and experience as a hazmat technician, firefighter Coughlin advised the incident commander that to properly mitigate the hazards created by the chemical reaction, the incident needed to be escalated to include a Tier 1 response by the state hazmat team. Firefighter Coughlin's technical assistance early in the incident prevented harm to any public safety personnel and ensured the health and safety of the school population. Hours later, following ventilation and air quality monitoring, fire personnel were able to reunite staff and students with their personal belongings for an early dismissal. Thank you. Dispatcher EMT Shannon Tuttle. During an unscheduled overnight dispatch shift from Sunday, October 29th into Monday, October 30th, 2017, Dispatcher Tuttle encountered multiple technological challenges which had not been explicitly covered during her training. After dispatching personnel to multiple incidents caused by an electrical storm, Dispatcher Tuttle faced the loss of power in which the backup generation for the building failed to operate. As battery backups began to discharge their remaining stored power in rapid succession, she lost computers, radios, and phones, including 911. Multiple attempts by fire personnel to manually start the generator were unsuccessful, requiring her to dispatch from a portable radio in a communications center being illuminated first by flashlight and subsequently by portable LED lighting from one of the apparatus in the fleet. After street power was restored and she was once again able to use building lighting, computers, radios, and phones, she faced a second failure of the radios. Moments before the chief called in an incident by radio, Dispatcher Tuttle dispatched the entire working fire on Mill Street using a portable radio. During the frenzy of the extra shift she had picked up with little notice, Dispatcher Tuttle handled herself with calm and professionalism and ensured all incidents received the proper resources. Thank you. This concludes our award ceremony. You're welcome to stay and have refreshments that are in the back of the room. Thank you all very much.
Good to go?